Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another week of the Corbin Report. We got a lot going on today. Another week for the rankings. And yes, I know football is back for week 3 today. So, see how that goes tonight. However, this week, going to start a little different with the rankings. Instead of going 1 to 32, we're going to go from the bottom up. And if you want to find out where your team is ranked, if they are high, you'll have to continue to listen. So, let's get started. Coming in ranked at 32 in this week's rankings are none other than the Carolina Panthers. They may be one of the worst teams in the league right now, and they played the Los Angeles Chargers, who seem to be proving me wrong that they are better than I thought. And so they went down one spot, and then who else than the New York Giants to go move up one from 32 to 31, even though they lost to the Redskins in a close game, which they should have won. Now at 30, moving down 7 spots after competing with a team who has a defense, while this team at 30 has a rookie quarterback, is the Denver Broncos. And yes, I know for these rankings descriptions, kind of keep them a little short for right now. And this one, though, if you're in Florida, this Florida team fell 29 spots after losing to the. Sorry, not 29 spots. That is incorrect. This Florida team fell to 29 after losing to the Cleveland Browns, who the week before lost to the Cowboys. The Jaguars are 0-2, even though their games have been close. Now moving down 9 spots is another rookie quarterback who had a chance to win it in Sunday Night Football, but him and his team came up short. Against the Houston Texans, the Bears are ranked at 28 this week. Now moving back to Florida, another Florida team. They took a hit in the rankings, going down to 19. Going down to 27 from 19. Or going down to 27. And so did their starting quarterback, Tua. The Dolphins had a hard time, in my opinion, against their division rival, the Buffalo Bills, and I thought this game would be closer. At 26, moving down 5 spots, after allowing more than 40 points to the division rival Arizona Cardinals, are the LA Rams. Let's remember, the Rams don't have Aaron Donald, who retired just recently. Now heading to 25, this team did win this week, and it was another divisional game. But they were playing the Giants, one of the worst teams in the league, and it was super close. The Redskins are at 25, and they are one of the lowest ranked winning teams this week. Excuse me. Moving down 9 spots, 24, after a high scoring game in week 1 and losing a close one to the Packers, who do not have their starting quarterback, Jordan Love, are the Indianapolis Colts. Well, let's stay in the AFC and in the East Coast. This team took this game to overtime and ended up losing on a game-winning field goal to the Seattle Seahawks. The New England Patriots moved down 5 spots to 23. Now we're about to get to number 22, and this team moved up 7 spots. And no, it is not a team who won their game. They should have won or at least sent the game to overtime. And ironically, the first 2 games they lost by a touchdown and by the exact same score, 24-17. This team lost to the New York Jets. It is the Tennessee Titans. At 21, this team moving up 7 spots from last week's rankings. They are the team who beat the team ranked at 22 in this week's rankings, the New York Jets. Moving up 10 spots and into 20 may be a surprising game, may not be. It is the Atlanta Falcons. And yes, they did win, and they beat the Eagles in Monday Night Football. Kirk Cousins led them to a drive that took the lead at the end of the fourth quarter. The Eagles then had a chance to win it. Then Jalen Hurts threw an interception to Atlanta. In my opinion, Cousins usually does well on primetime TV, and I knew that, and I still didn't think him and the Falcons would win. And now this team, moving up 3 spots to 19, they got embarrassed by the Dallas Cowboys in week 1. In week 2, they held on to beat the Jaguars. It's the Cleveland Browns. Excuse me. Now we're going to head to 18. Moving down 15 spots would be one of the most surprising games of the week to me. They lost to the New Orleans Saints, who put a butt whooping on them. It is the Dallas Cowboys. Really not much else to say about that. Now heading to 17. Moving up 8 spots, which might have been another surprising win this week from another team. They took down one of the top teams in the Ravens. It is the Las Vegas Raiders. This is the halfway point, so I'm going to take a little small break. When I come back, I'll look at the top half of the rankings and find out which team snuck into the top 10 and find on top 5. All right, welcome back to the Corbin Report. So, if you missed it, we went through the first half of this week's rankings, going from bottom to top, 32 to 17. And just to correct a little, if there was a little mistake, the Jaguars, who are 29, they were 17 last week and they fell down 12 spots, losing to the Cleveland Browns. Or not the Cleveland Browns, sorry. Yes, the Browns. So now heading into the second half, which would be the top 16 teams of the NFL in this week's rankings. Moving down 3 spots, although they did win in overtime on a game-winning field goal, which was I'd say, a good game. And yes, I am a New England Patriots fan, and no, it's not the Patriots. I would say it was a good game. It's fun to watch. It is the Seattle Seahawks at 16. Now, moving up to 15, only moving up 1 spot. They don't have their starting quarterback, and they did escape with a win against the Indianapolis Colts. It's the Green Bay Packers. You remember correctly, the Packers with Jordan Love lost to the Eagles previous week in a high-scoring game, and the Colts had a shootout with the Texans the previous week as well. Now, this team at 14, even though they lost, they still moved up 12 spots, showing they can compete with any team. They did lose to one of the best teams in the league, the Chiefs. It is the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, moving down 7 spots to 13, and what I consider a weird loss, we can say or not, it's the Eagles because, as mentioned earlier, Kirk Cousins usually does well with primetime games. So we have the Eagles, or I have Eagles at 13. Now, ironically, moving up 12 spots to number 12 is a team who put up big points for the second week in a row, and this time came out with the victory. It is the Arizona Cardinals. Heading to 11, this is another winning team, and even though they won, they went down to 1 spot, not too far. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now we're about to head into the top 10. So we're getting towards the end. And of course, obviously, if you haven't heard your team, they're in the top 10. So moving up 10 spots from last week, beating one of the top teams who don't have their star running back, Christian McCaffrey of the 49ers. It's the Minnesota Vikings, which I did not see this coming either. Last week, the Vikings did play the Panthers, which I guess we can all agree are not good. And this week was a true test against a good team. And the Vikings won. And we'll see if they can keep it up. Now, this team at 9 went up 2 spots. And they are proving me wrong. I know in the first week in this past week they played the Panthers, who aren't the best team as I just mentioned, but they did beat the Raiders in week 1, who just beat the Baltimore Ravens, which I don't think anyone saw that coming, and that is helping making this team look good. It is the Los Angeles Chargers at 9. Speaking of the Ravens, they do move down 3 spots to 8 after losing on a game-winning field goal by the Raiders. This team I have at 7 moved down 3 spots in a closely contested game, which I thought they would have won against the Buccaneers, and boy, was I wrong with this one. It's a tough week with me picking games this week. It is the Detroit Lions. Moving into 6, moving down 4 spots in what is another close game, and as I said earlier, a surprising game, despite losing, still ranked pretty high. It is the 49ers, and for them, I really don't have much to say. Heading into the top 5, I'm not sure anyone saw this unless you are a fan of the team. They moved up 9 spots and embarrassed this team. And when I say embarrassed, I mean they embarrassed them. I know, in my opinion, their defense is good and their offense is questionable. but they scored a lot of points and took down the Cowboys. It is the New Orleans Saints. And then moving up 8 spots to number 4. This team, their defense to me is good and offense is questionable after losing some receivers this offseason. However, for 2 weeks in a row, they have won and proved me wrong. It is the Buffalo Bills. Now, before we get to the top 3, now if you didn't hear your team, most likely they'll be here, of course, just by process of elimination. But where are they at in the top 3? So let's get to it. Rounding out the top 3, moving up 6 spots. And as I said earlier, also surprising me this week, it is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's all I really have to say right now. Let's not forget, they did make the playoffs last year. So I guess I should have taken that into consideration too. That shouldn't really been that surprising, kind of is. Now, coming in number 2 after a nice win on Sunday Night Football, from what I saw, defense doing good and moving up 5 spots, it's the Houston Texans. Now, staying at number 1 for the 3rd week in a row, they played a close game with the Bengals. And yes, I'd say their defense isn't the best and their offense, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. Their offense is Kelsey and Mahomes, but they continue to find ways to win, and their defense does surprise me year after year. So got the Chiefs at 1 for the top 3, Texans at 2, Buccaneers at 3. And stay tuned for next week's episode of the Corbin Report to see if your team dropped or moved up in the rankings. Feel free to comment on all platforms and message if you have any comments, suggestions, questions. Thanks for listening for another episode. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.